is an excellent question, so I appreciate you asking it. You're in a small school in North Dakota, and your 12-year-old daughter has Down syndrome, has an IEP. A few years ago, your daughter started to pretend to be sick at school to get out of work and go home. It escalated to full-on vomiting to go home. This never happened at home or therapy, so we knew that it was behavior at school. They insisted something was wrong, so you took her to every doctor under the sun. Let's see, you moved to a new school in the district, grades 5 through 12. Since the beginning of the school year, has now started this behavior again. You've explained it's behavioral and not illness related, which of course in our new world of COVID, and this has only added to the complexity of the problems within our public schools. Sorry, I lost my mic. So, yesterday it was that she had a runny nose and rosy cheeks. Is this a denial of FAPE? She has no fever, comes home and plays. Requested a behavioral analysis from an outside agency. You've not gotten the results back yet. And that this is a 3-year battle and you're done. You're an early childhood special ed teacher and you're now a school counselor that oversees behavior plans and RTI. So you know what needs to happen. You just can't get ignorant school staff to do it. Okay, now I'm going to assume you work in the same school district that your daughter attends, which only adds to the complexity and the issues. I'm glad that you got a FBA from an outside agency. That's going to be a world of assistance. But I can tell you, in a lot of our cases, this is going to be a 3-year battle. And I'm not saying that in some of our cases that we have taken on, we do have to sort of back up to educate the school system. And it might be done through one case. It might be done through 5. But it is one of those things to where I will approach a situation and understand the realities of what I'm dealing with. And a lot of it is centered and really deeply rooted in ignorance. And the only way you can sit there and cure ignorance is through education. You can't force people to educate themselves. That is just an impossibility. And so it is something to where it's possible, but usually it is something that is incremental. Humans change incrementally, and it requires some patience. Now, at the same time, that doesn't mean that you don't give things a hard push, utilizing your dispute resolution options, utilizing the tools within the IDEA, for example, the use of mediation, the use of facilitated IEP meetings, the use of independent education evaluations, in understanding the value of just regular in-house evaluations, and understanding how to tier all that together. And yes, and I've said this before, I mean, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And in a lot of our rural small town locations across the country, and it doesn't matter if it's North Dakota, if it's Alabama, all right, if it's New Mexico, it does not matter where you're located. You have a very tight-knit small town community, not a lot of experience with Down syndrome, not a lot of experience with autism, not a lot of experience with maladaptive behaviors. And so therefore, sort of behind the 8 ball, so to speak, when it comes to understanding what the current science is and the proper way to approach behavioral responses within school, and understanding those nuances. Because I can tell you, the one of the problems that we're running into, that you pointed out in your question, is that we are, especially in our COVID day and age, there's a lot of wrapped in, ready-made excuses with looking at a child, especially because of the vague symptoms related to COVID that look like everything else under the sun. Because it is. Runny nose, fever, maybe not, most of the time not a fever. So it's just one of these things to where a school will sit there and go, oh, we got to err on the side of caution. By erring on the side of caution, they're sending your child home. Well, what's the ramifications of that? Yes, it's in denial of FAPE, because if they're sending your child home and your child's not sick, and they haven't sit there and canceled out the fact that that there needs to be accommodations made. And if those accommodations are that you respect the doctor's note that, hey, the child isn't sick, some of these things are behavioral, then at that point, the school system, most of the states will have compulsory education requirements. Attached to the compulsory education requirements is a mandated number of days by the state legislature that they have to educate children. If they're constantly sending your child home, then they cannot educate your child, because they're removing your child arbitrarily from the learning environment. And at that point, yeah, they're knocking on the door of some legal problems and putting themselves at risk of those kind of suits. And of course, accruing compensatory that they would owe the child for what they're doing. A lot of parents, because they don't understand how to navigate that sickness aspect, my child did the same thing. Every once in a while, she sort of understood how to play the staff, and it's amazing that we would go pick her up, and we knew she wasn't really sick, but they sent her home, said she was sick, and did the same thing. Got home, she played. The problem with behavior, especially childhood behavior, is a lot of the stuff can be reinforced and learned, and especially if the child is in an environment to where they're escaping demands. And so it doesn't take a child that long, and I don't care, disability, non-disability. Humans figure that out, period, where they can sit there and press things and to escape demands. All right, I do it all the time. Okay, with whatever unpleasantries approach me day to day. The danger in schools is that they can sit there and be their own worst enemy. And so are behavior plans in place just for the child? No. In many, many instances, behavior plans are there just as much to keep a staff, to keep administration in check. And we use those opportunities in developing behavior plans and functional behavior assessments, not just to help the child, because you gotta realize when we're doing ABC data, which is the antecedent, the behavior, the consequence, and we're trying to identify why a child is acting out or engaging in these behaviors. Many times it's the staff, and sometimes it's even wrapped in good intention. And it's reinforcing that. So in addressing the child's problems and in extinguishing that behavior, we've also got to work and extinguishing the behavior of the staff that is contributing to the behavior of the child. And in your case, every time there's a sniffle or a sneeze, we need to send the child home. Therefore, they're creating the reaction or the expected reaction that then the child latches onto, that results in them getting what they want. So it is a balancing act of being able to sit there and identify things as they are, and then putting those things in place. But like I said, a behavior plan in many, many instances, and that would be true for you, is more so for the staff, because if we can sit there and educate the staff and I say that, and it's got to be subtle, because if they think that you're somehow educating them, then it's amazing how humans, especially humans with degrees, that there tends to be a hubris problem, as though those of us with degrees, somehow are better than, and that's just absolute horse dung. That's just not the case, guys. I would hope everybody out there that watches this understands that in our technological day and age, that these computers that we carry around that also act as phones, that it contains all the knowledge on the face of the planet, guys. This thing right here contains everything that I do for a living, everything. The only difference between me and anyone else is I spend a lot of time becoming an expert in this area. Any parent that hires me, they could do this on their own, but they would need to commit a lot of time to get to my level of expertise. So the benefit that I would have is simply in the aspect that that the parent doesn't want to spend that amount of time. They trust me to handle that for them so that they can sit there and preserve their time to focus it on other things. Educators should understand that as well. People can homeschool their kid. They can teach their own child. You're not magic, all right? And so, but unfortunately, we are dealing with humans that are on power trips, that are insecure, so therefore everything's offensive to them. You know, how dare you think that I don't understand? You don't understand, but you can't let them know they don't understand. That's the whole thing about curing ignorance, guys. Ignorance is so rooted in that hubris, false confidence. You know, it's also rooted in that fearfulness that somehow I'm being challenged, and it's the whole identity of who I am being threatened. And so therefore, that's where we get things like bigotry from, and things like racism, and all of those bad things that you know, compose who we are as human beings. You know, being able to sit there and pause and to sort of take an accounting of all of those picadillies about yourself that, you know, require peeling back that onion and looking at those things that we can sit there and correct about ourselves. But in trying to help other people correct those things about themselves, you got to be real subtle about it. Because if it's in your face, it's just gonna blow up in your face, and you don't want to do that. So successful advocacy, especially if you're a parent, because the school people are not expecting change to come through, let's say, a peer, because you also work there. And you know how that is with mean girls club, just inter-office relationships, those kind of things. People feel threatened by that as well. So you have it even doubly rough because you're a parent and you're a peer of other teachers and administrators. So it is the subtlety of teaching them, but by teaching them and by getting this right, and I think you're on the right path, but it is going to take a little bit of time. You can sit there and shove people out into the light, and through the progress that they see in your daughter's plan or with other children, especially if you have the keys to constructing good behavior plans and developing a good behavior RTI program, then I can tell you, you're going to hasten that change because they're going to see the positive results of these things. And then the other trick, I'm not going to say it's a trick, it's a human nature reality. It's amazing how you can convert people over to the proper way of thinking if they think that they had a part to play in the success of the child in correcting these things. But so many parents or advocates or attorneys, they want the credit. They want to sit there and go, oh, that was my idea. I don't care. Adopt it. Say it was your idea. Say this was your plan. I don't care. I want you to take investment and ownership in adopting what we know works. That's part of that education of lifting people up. Because if they take ownership of what works, then they can sit there and, so to speak, a good infection infect other people. And then you're able to sit there and push forward these things that you're struggling to accomplish right now. But you're not wrong in your frustration. It's validated. Perfect storm, because you got COVID and people want to be extra safe, and that's the excuse that they're using. But I don't want to discount the reality that many schools, because of laziness, because of this new hypochondria that we're inserting into sections of our society, and oh my God, I tell you what, guys, we don't want that. So stop being hypochondriacs. We don't want that. Once it's reinforced, it's just like any other maladaptive behavior, guys. We're going to have to institute behavior plans to get people to stop being like that. And I'm talking about adults. I'm not even talking about kids. We are reinforcing these problems with our children. I mean, I'm telling you, we are laying the groundwork for some major, major, major problems. over the course of the next 5 years. Just from the fallout of how the adults have responded during COVID. Making my job easier. I mean, what I'm saying is it's just making me busier. These are all things that are preventable. Just reason and logic can sit there and stop this fear. This unfounded fear. It's absolutely unfounded. But your child's losing instruction as a result of that. And like I said, they need a behavior plan just as much as your child. In fact, we have to start with a behavior plan for them. You got to be subtle in how you do it. Start with a behavior plan for them. That behavior plan, which is really designed around your daughter, but cleverly designed around your daughter to really deal with the staff's behavior. Progress is being made. Thank them profusely for being geniuses in coming up with this plan that has helped your child. They take ownership, they infect others, and there you go. Problem solved. Your rural school system might be the model school that the State Department in North Dakota adopts. I'm telling you, I've seen this happen before. I've been a part of some of those things. Proudly. Got no credit for it. I'm not going to get a Rocky statue anywhere. Nor do I want one. That's not the purpose of this. Okay?